Hello?
There it is.
Okay.
I really don't like these things. One of the reasons I like to share is because the people that help me go financially is a part of what happens. You may not be there, but you give to it, so you're part of what happens in these countries when people accept Christ, because it enables other people to go. Where's he got us up on the board over here? There's a little country of El Salvador. I found out when I got there this year that my phone said 75 miles to Guatemala City from where we was at, so it wasn't very far across there to Guatemala City where I was at before. So where's different picture? Yeah. This is a picture of the sign of our church that we was at. It was New Life Church, and they was when we went down there's a group of 11 of us, and it was going to be 6 churches. And when we got there, it had changed to 5 churches. And the reason for that was the pastor had a heart attack and died 2 days before we was there. So that one church dropped out. And but these churches was less than a year old, and they didn't have no financial support to start these churches, except these young men just went out and started the churches with their families. There's no other families went with them. It was the pastors by themselves, and they went out and started. Let's keep that back on the other picture, right? There you go. Yeah. And they go out and they started these by themselves. And this building here, they hadn't been in this except about 2 or 3 months. When we got there, they was having their church in a home. I say in a home, it was in a yard. We went to that home, and the guy that was letting them have the church there, his wife was a member of this new church, but he was a lost man. But he was letting them have church in that yard, and there wasn't no building or nothing. It was just chairs out in the yard. Little house was dirt floor and no electricity, but yet that's where they was having church. And that was one of the first visits we made to that was their house. The wife wanted us to talk to him, and we had to go about 3 times because he wasn't there when we get there. I don't know whether he was running a little bit or what, but finally we got to go to his house, and we got to talk to him. And the good thing is he accepted the Lord, and so he was part of the church now also, and he was one of them. When we had the services, that little car, I was going to tell you about that little car. That little car was our ride to the church every morning, and the pastor's wife drove that. I was in the front seat. Alan was in the back seat. The interpreter was in the back seat. The grandma was in the back seat. And 2 little ones was in the back seat. And it was about a 20-mile ride out there. So it was a full house every morning. And that's the reason I wanted to show you that little car. She was a good driver. But let's go on to the next picture now. Okay, this here is that guy in the back. He's part of our group. I think Bob may know him with his hands up there. But this is our opening rally we had there. And this was the... You're looking to see how big the church was. That was it. That's as big as that church building was. That's big as... And we had to open a rally for all the churches at that little church. Let's go on to the next one. And that's just another picture of the same thing there. All right. This picture here, that's our interpreter in the very middle, the gal with the white hat. She was 37 years old, didn't have no driver's license, never been married, and she was an English teacher at the university. And the lady on the far right over here, she was the pastor's wife, and she went out with us every day. She took us out walking every day. The difference between this one and Guatemala, we got in a car every morning, and we'd drive to school, or we'd drive to the farm, and we'd climb out, and we'd present the gospel, and we'd get back in, we'd drive. Well, here, when we got to the church, it was all walking from then. We walked every day. And this little gal, this second from the right, her name was Lou. She was in the opening service when Alan preached. There was 12 youth, and 4 of them accepted Christ that morning. 0 adults in the church that service the first morning we was there. But she was one of, and she come with us every day since then. I mean, she was there when we got to the church, and she was excited, and she'd do anything that you wanted her to do. I mean, she was a real excited gal. And that young man right there next to the interpreter, that's kind of a sad story. Alan preached, he didn't accept Christ. I talked to him by himself, he didn't accept Christ. And I give an illustration on Wednesday night with them, and there was about 15 or 18 youth there that night, and 4 more raised their hand to be saved, and I asked them if they'd come forward. Well, he jerked his hand down then, and he wouldn't come forward. His hand was up. And I talked to him again, and he said, "No, I don't want to." Well, the main reason he did not want to is because we went to his home. His home was alcohol. His parents was drunks. And we talked to him, and whenever his parents said no, he said no. You know, he would not respond on account of what was happening in his home. And that little gal there, she's the pastor's daughter. And the guy on the end, that's Alan Seamers. Alan's a retired pastor. I'd say retired. I don't know whether it's retired or just changed to a different missions, because he does about 5 or 6 a year every year. He goes all over the country. His son-in-law has a girls' home in Guatemala City, matter of fact, for abused girls. And Alan goes down there a couple of times a year. And I'll tell you this, since you ain't got a video of it. Alan got up there to do the deal on opening morning. He asked me, he said, "Get up there." He said, "We didn't introduce yourself." He got up there and he said, "We're going to sing a special this morning." So we sang a special. So there's no evidence of that. So no, he's got something of it. But anyway. This was our group that was, and the pastor, you're wondering, well, where's the pastor? Well, every morning the pastor had to work. He had to work for half a day. And he had a truck, and he'd run produce to different places and get rid of the produce, and he'd come at noon out there and work with us in the afternoon. But every morning he had to go to work. But this was some of our group that we was with. We can go on to the next picture. Yeah, this here is one of the homes we went into, and Alan shared the gospel with this young lady, and she accepted Christ. And these homes, most of these homes does not have electric. This one did. You see a light bulb in there. You see a light bulb hanging in the top of that one. That did have electric, but it's still a dirt floor. They're real poor people, and I'd say probably 30% of the people are alcoholics. and you wonder where they get the money to buy, whiskey. But they get the money somewhere. And about 30% of the people are alcoholics. And when Alan and I started visiting that first day, we went probably to 5 or 6 homes. And he looked at me when we come out of about the 6th one, he said, "This is pretty rough." I said, "Yeah, it is." We'd go in a home and present the gospel, and when it come time for them to accept, they'd say, "Not today. Not today." And it was about the same answer in every home. You'd hear that same thing, "Not today." But the Lord changed that. We got to go in some places that they did accept Christ. I don't have as many pictures of Alan. Don't take no pictures. And I'd forget to take them in a lot of homes we'd go into, but we got some. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, yeah. This little teenager in the middle there, she is one of them accept Christ that week. And she accepted it before we went to their parents and their grandmother. And they said no first, but was able to talk to them some more, and they did pray to receive Christ. But that girl there, she's 15 years old. We asked how old I asked her how old she was. She was 15 years old. But they had a good youth group at the church. It was a good group. And Alan and I did on that Sunday morning. They took us in there was a children's department back there. It had about 12 kids that was probably 6, 7 years old. And so we sang Zacchaeus to them and talked to them a little bit. And then there was one adult lady that wanted, I said they was having church in her home. She was back there with those kids. And so we did that before we went to the main service. Go ahead and go on to the next one. That's just a picture of that little girl. She's got that cube in her hand that I used. She's carrying it around. That's just a picture of the little girl. Okay, now, the guy on the left is the pastor. That's Francisco. And the guy in the middle, he was a construction worker. And he wasn't married, but he had one of the nicer homes we was in down there. The one reason is I think he knew how to do his own work. Most of that work in his house he did himself, so he had a floor and more modern stuff. And he prayed to receive Christ also. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, this is a picture on top of the, I don't know whether you call it a huge hill or a mountain. It's probably 2,000 or 3,000 feet up there. That we went up on top, and that's overlooking the valley that we was at down there. We was at the bottom of it, and we'd walk up that hills a lot of days, part of the way, but we never had to go all the way. And there was the reason we was on top of that hill. There was a man down there sweeping the street. And he is putting in the garbage can and pulling the garbage can down there, sweeping the street off. And Alan was in there giving his testimony to some people in the house, and there wasn't room for me in there, so I just stayed out. And I give him my track, and he was reading it there. And I noticed he never did go nowhere all the time. We was there, and then Alan and them come out, and I got the interpreter to go over there, and I said, we'll talk to him. And he asked if we'd come to his house. And to him and his family. I said, yeah, we'd love to. Well, it was on top of that hill. But the good thing is, the pastor said we would drive the truck, when he was there. So he drove the truck up that hill. And see, that's pretty country there. It's pretty country in there. But he drove the truck up that hill and drug bottom a bunch. I mean, the truck did. It was a rough road and hard to get up there. Let's go on, yeah. And this is a picture of the guy on the left's the one that invited us to his home. And his wife's there on the right. and they all accepted Christ, and the others just a group, our group there that wanted the picture taken. Of course, you see Lou is our faithful one that always went along. And the boy, even though he didn't accept Christ, one of the main reasons he was coming to church was because he was getting fed at noon. He was getting a meal. So, that still have an effect on him, on his life, on what's happening there. Okay, let's go on to the next. Yeah. Trying to remember which one this is. Okay, this group here, the whole group accepted Christ. That's the reason I took that picture. And the mom and their children, and that's just me and Alan in the picture. And this here, I got a picture of the pastor. I always liked this because he went up there sharing the gospel with this lady at this house himself, and I wanted to show that he was doing that also, and so he was sharing the gospel with this lady here. Go ahead. This group here, we went way down in the cane fields. It was way down in the bottom, and got down there and this whole family. It was one of the tenderest hearts that we'd been at on the whole trip. They all, I think there was 7 of them there that accepted Christ on that one right there. And it was down in the cane fields. And I found out a little bit about sugar cane. There's a lot of big sugar cane down there, and sugar cane, you only cut it once a year, and it takes it a year to grow. And we kept asking, when is the time? And they said, 1 week. And it's time to cut all the sugar cane down, and then it grows back by itself. So, but that's where they is at, down the sugar cane fields. This lady's house was half burnt. When she wanted to visit from us, when we got there, it was already dark. There was no electricity, no water. The government had give her a construction job, they said. She worked construction for the government. And Alan shared with her that night with flashlights. We was using flashlights at night, and she accepted Christ, and her son accepted Christ there. This here we was sharing through the fence. Every once in a while, you get one that won't open up and let you in. So, and this was one of them. She'd talk to you, but you couldn't go inside that fence. And I had the interpreter was actually sharing the gospel with us, and we got to the point we had the interpreter sharing. And honestly, I was a little concerned about the interpreter being a Christian. Alan and I was both at the first of the week, because we asked her if she went to church. She said no. And I said, well, do you know you're going to heaven? She said yes. And I said, well, why? She said, well, I got Jesus in my heart. I said, how come you don't go to church? I just don't go. And that kind of got me. It kind of stuck with me all week. And during the week, we had a lot of people that say that I used to go to church. Said, but I don't go anymore. And it got where she seemed like she'd come back with that same statement that they got Jesus in their heart. And so the Lord gave me that scripture in 1 John 2:19. I'll just read that to you, what I told them. This is what it says, and I want to tell you this. We got a lot of people as members of our church that are never here. They used to be part of us, but they're no longer part of us, are they? They're no longer here. Well, here's what God's Word says. They went out from us because they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that they may be made manifest that none of them were of us. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of church members that don't ever go to church no more. And you know, they can say, well, I'm backslidden or whatever. You know, God chastises whom He loves. You know, and if you're not getting chastised and you're out of church, there's something wrong. You know, and we have lots of people on our church rolls that this is what God's Word says. You know, it's just telling the way it is. You know, in Matthew 7:21 says, not everyone may say, the Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. You know, saying that prayer don't get us into heaven. You know, we've got to give our life to Christ to get to heaven. You know, this guy here, he was a cement man, and we walked up there, and Alan shared with him, and he accepted Christ, and he was working for a guy, you can't see him, but he was up on top of those stairs up there, and he was a Catholic, and he was a devoted Catholic, and the house belonged to him. He didn't like us talking to him at all. I tried to go up there and talk to him, but he didn't want to talk. But the guy went ahead and he accepted Christ, and you know, the exciting thing about that, we had 51 decisions or something during the week, you know, people professing Christ. But on a closing rally that night, 12 of those people that accepted Christ was in that service. You know, they was in that service. So, you know, it was encouraging to that pastor because, you know, on Sunday mornings they had what they did. They had church. After church, they went and walked the streets presenting the gospel. That's what they did every Sunday. That's what they're doing every Sunday now. After church, that's what they do on Sunday afternoon. This guy here, he was another worker that I got to talk to and led him to Christ. He had a little drinking problem, and told him the Lord could help him take care of that. And if he really, truly accepted Christ. Go ahead. I just took a picture of that to just let you know there's the kitchen. I mean, there it is. And there was a lot of homes we went in, and that's just the way the kitchen was, is outside. And they was cooking their meal out on that fire on the outside every day. This one here is another couple, that lady that Alan's got his hand on her shoulder, and a young man, they accepted Christ. And Lou, that was our faithful trooper. She liked her picture taken. She was with us all the time. But Lou, about the third day we was there, she come up to me and said, I want to go home with you. And you know, I just kind of hugged her and grinned at her, and I said, that'd be good if you could, you know. And well, closing service we had, we said our goodbyes to all the church and all that, and you know, we was getting ready to climb in the van, and the pastor's wife hollered at me, and here comes Lou. You know, she comes, grabs a hold of me, hugs me, you know. But her parents were drunks too. You know, but maybe God will use her to change their lives, you know. And this is the pastor and his family, and their little certificate. They give us some certificates to give to the church that participated in the crusade. And they didn't have the name right. Matter of fact, I don't think we ever heard the name of the church all week long until we give them that certificate, and they said, this is wrong. So we had to take it back and get it redone. They was pretty adamant about getting their little certificate right. So. Now there we are in the back of the truck. This is our ride in every night after dark. Is in the back of this truck. That's his truck that he hauls the produce on. But at nighttime we would load back up in that, and we'd make about the 20-mile drive back into town in the back of the truck. See that one lady down there, the older lady, is the grandmother, and the reason she come with them because she fixed us lunch every day at the church. And the guy up there on the mountain, he was a farmer, and he had a little old stick that had one little point on it, and it had corn growing all over that mountain on them hills. Any place they could get one, there's a stalk of corn coming up. And I said, well, how do you plant that? He said, one kernel at a time, just one kernel at a time. But he had squash, and the squash growed above the ground. It was about 5 feet tall on this vine. I had to duck to get underneath there, but you went underneath there, all the squash was hanging down. And he was so happy after he saved, he was wanting to give everything away, and he kept wanting to give stuff away. Well, he gave the church about a half a bushel of that squash. It was round squash, green squash. And guess what we had every day for lunch? We had squash. Fixed several different ways, but it was squash. We had squash soup. We had squash with some kind of cheese on it, and baked, and we had squash a lot of different ways. And who's that? Huh? Who is that? That's Wilson. That was Paul's interpreter. I just took that picture so he'd see his interpreter. He's the one that Paul sent him a Bible down there. He's a good interpreter too. He is really a good Christian with it. Right there. There's our leader, that bald-headed guy that's shiny there. That's Mark Hill. He kind of reminds you of Mark Lowry. He's about that much of a cut-up. He really is. But that's our group on that. And the other guy that's grinning there, he's the leader of the El Salvador over there. He leads the group, and the rest of it, there just wasn't enough room in there to get a good picture of it. That was our closing rally that we had there. And actually, till I went in there, I was sitting out in the street because there wasn't room, with everybody there. After everybody was there, we were sitting out in the street that night. And that little church, but there's numbers of salvations out of the 5 churches. And they was all new churches. And could you imagine, just if half of them come to church, you're more than doubling your congregation in one week. That's quite an accomplishment. Because and I know that everybody that bows their head and says a prayer is not going to go to heaven. Not everybody is going, because everybody don't mean it. Everybody may say it with the words, but they're really not saying it with their heart. They're really not giving their life to Christ. And that's what that scripture says. They went out from us because they wasn't part of us. And I probably left a lot out, but that's some gist of our mission trip that we went on.